Go ahead, leave, she said, swirling a half glass of Bourgogne like it cost her nothing, because it didn't. I give you a week without me. She was barefoot on cold marble, hair up, dressed down to her thigh bone, like a fashion ad for a life I built but apparently didn't belong in. I watched the wine glass, not her eyes. She had that look again, the one she'd been perfecting over the years, mockery with a mist of boredom. I didn't say a word, just reached into my coat pocket, pulled out the house keys, the car fob, even the elevator chip, set them gently on the island like I was setting down a used napkin. She blinked, once, then gave a tight little smirk. I'll have Jeff change the codes in the morning, she added, louder this time, as if the echo of it would sting more. I nodded once. That was the whole response, not a word, because I knew words wouldn't land anymore, not with her, not in that house, and certainly not tonight. I walked past the living room, where she used to curl into me during thunder, and out the door without looking back. The soft hush of the biometric lock clicking behind me sounded final, like an obituary being typed. She waited a beat, two, then pulled out her phone, sent a message. He's gone. Took him less than a minute. He'll crawl back, trust me. Men like that always do. That message got seen by 3 people immediately. Her personal trainer, her hairstylist, and her college roommate who married her ex. The usual peanut gallery. What she didn't know was that I wasn't walking away from something. I was walking toward it. Because everything she called hers, the house, the car, the life, even the friends, ran on a skeleton of agreements, guarantees, and signatures. My signatures. On contracts she'd never read, foundations she never asked about, accounts she smiled through while I shielded her from the fine print. She called it comfort. I called it structure. And when you pull structure, comfort collapses. I didn't go to a hotel. I went to the office, my real home. 6 years of architectural design files, vendor clauses, escrow routing systems, and most importantly, silent triggers. Quiet little clauses tucked into corporate skeletons and blind trusts. I hadn't built an empire. I'd built a fuse box, and she just lit the match. While she slept in that cavern of a house under bed sheets I imported from Milan, 3 systems began rerouting. It didn't make a sound, not even a ping. But her father's backup credit line paused. Her firm's margin account threw a silent exception. And the trust? The trust stopped feeding her auto draws. All legal, all signed by both of us. Years ago, during what she used to call our practical phase. At 3:04 a.m., her boutique's scheduled inventory renewal was declined. She wouldn't know that until morning, of course, right about when the concierge would politely ask her to verify a new access code to the building garage. The old one, deactivated. By dawn, the people who actually read contracts were already texting each other. A small request here. If you're still listening, and more than 97% of people do without subscribing, consider hitting that button. It helps our team keep building these for you. At 8:21 a.m., her father's private office line rang, the one that rarely did. His eyes scanned the alert. Custodian authorization, transfer of authority notice, Danner, M. He blinked, then called his daughter. The bank just called, he said. What did you do? Me? She snapped, still brushing her hair, still thinking the world was made of her comfort. He left, that's all. He left last night like a drama queen. Did you sign anything recently? No. Did he? Silence. That was the moment she realized she didn't know, and that terrified her more than anything. By 7:12 a.m., she was still asleep in that ridiculous silk sleep mask with wife, queen, CEO, embroidered in gold across the front, completely unaware her little empire was hemorrhaging beneath her. The first missed call came from her father, then another, then her boss. She silenced them all without looking, but by the 4th buzz, something in the tone of the ring, a sharpness she couldn't place, made her finally lift the mask and glance at her screen. 11 missed calls, 3 voicemails, 2 from her father marked urgent. She rolled her eyes. God, what now? Still in her robe, she walked barefoot across the heated floors and poured herself a glass of pomegranate juice, sipping like it was just another morning. She tapped the voicemail button. First one. Why is the private line frozen? I just spoke with First Havens. The account isn't authorizing internal wires. Second one, her boss. Did your husband touch the fund access? The bank just called me, on a Sunday. Her smirk started to falter. She opened her laptop at the kitchen counter and tried logging into the family trust portal. Invalid credentials. She tried again, this time slower. Session expired. Please contact administrator. Then a red banner appeared. Access revoked. She blinked. The cursor on the screen kept flashing, like it was mocking her. No, 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 this is ridiculous, she muttered, standing up. She dialed the number for the trust administrator, a man named Calvin she hadn't spoken to in years because that's Michael's guy. Straight to voicemail. That was the first real hairline crack in her confidence. She told herself it was a glitch, a hiccup. Nothing Michael hadn't messed up before. He'd probably just rerouted something wrong in one of his nerdy overnight projects. She'd call him. No, actually, she wouldn't. He'd come crawling back by dinner. That's how this went. She threw on a white blouse and a blazer, tried to call her driver, but the line didn't connect. Instead, she walked to the garage herself. Her Mercedes blinked at her, but when she tapped the key fob, nothing happened. A beat later, the garage gate wouldn't lift. Then the intercom buzzed. Concierge. Polite. Apologetic. Mrs. Danner, I'm terribly sorry, but your garage access was deactivated this morning. We were told to expect a change in authorization. The file came directly from property management. You've got to be kidding, she snapped. He blinked, nodded once, then disappeared from the screen. She stood there, fuming in heels that hadn't touched pavement in 2 years. She had to call an Uber. At lunch, she walked into her boutique to pick up a pair of pre-ordered Bottega heels. The manager smiled too wide. I'm sorry, ma'am, the card is declining. Run it again. I've tried, 3 times, it's declining everything. She didn't scream, not yet, but her hands clenched around the boutique bag until the paper creased. She opened her banking app on her phone. Loading failed. Please check your credentials. She tried her backup account. Error 101, account on hold. By now, it was clear this wasn't a glitch. This wasn't just one account. This wasn't accidental. She walked outside and called her father. Okay, what the hell is going on? You need to talk to your husband, right now. I can't talk to him. He left, walked out like a damn martyr. Well, you better find him because the board called an emergency session. The fund's liquidity chain flagged a stopgap. Our own compliance team is asking for documentation. You were the secondary signatory, but your husband had managing trustee powers. Did you not read the clause in the updated agreement 2 years ago? What clause? Silence. He didn't answer her, not because he didn't know, but because it was dawning on him that she didn't. She stood frozen on the sidewalk, cars whooshing past her, the sunlight somehow too bright for how cold it felt. The man she dismissed 24 hours ago hadn't left. He'd extracted himself, surgically, and the bleeding had just begun. She didn't knock. She stormed into her father's office tower like a woman who still believed her last name had weight. Past security, up the elevator, through the glass doors like she owned the floor. She didn't notice the looks, the slight pause in greetings, the too careful smiles, but they noticed her. Not the woman who once arrived in a white Porsche to deliver overpriced champagne for the holidays, but the woman now standing in front of them, sweaty, overdressed, and unraveling. Her father's assistant stood as she approached. He's on a call. I don't care. Wait, Mrs. Danner. The assistant caught her elbow with unexpected firmness. Before you go in, I need to show you something. The girl, barely 30, always invisible until now, turned her monitor toward her. One screen, one spreadsheet, one cell highlighted in pale yellow. Asset log, holding company 04F, current owner M. Danner. Below it, every line, the house, the condo in Barcelona, the vineyard gifted to her father on his 60th, 3 equities in a green energy fund, all tagged with one name. Just his, not hers, not even shared. Soul. She stared at it. You're wrong, she muttered. The assistant said nothing, just minimized the screen and stepped back. Now when she opened the door to her father's office, she didn't charge in. She walked in like a woman stepping onto thin ice. He was behind his desk, jacket off, shirt rolled at the sleeves, head in one hand, phone on speaker with a compliance officer rattling off terms she didn't understand. Not then. Dad. He looked up slowly. His eyes were already hollow. He gestured, muting the call. Why the hell is my name off the asset log? He didn't answer right away, just turned in his chair, opened a drawer, and took out a manila folder. Thick, labeled in Michael's handwriting. Her chest tightened. Your husband, he began, was managing the instruments. What does that even mean? The tax shields, the guarantees, the layered LLCs, the succession triggers, the protection ladders. He filed the structural change 2 years ago when we shifted to the new holding model. You signed it. No, I didn't. He opened the folder, pulled out a familiar black and white photocopy of her initials, the date, the clause. Clause 18B, stewardship management. I thought that was about liability. He looked at her, eyes glassy. It was. That's why we gave it to him, because he didn't need the attention, because he understood the risk profiles. You said he was good with numbers. She remembered that, called him my boring calculator at dinner once in front of his parents. You said spreadsheets made your brain itch, her father continued, voice tightening. So he built the structure and kept it humming. I thought it was a marriage. I didn't think you'd treat him like a doormat. She stepped back like he'd slapped her. I thought it was just paper, she said. Just legal fluff. Well, that fluff now owns everything you thought was safe, everything I thought we protected. She opened the folder again, rifled through until she found a diagram, one she remembered Michael sketching years ago, back when he still asked her opinion about things, but the names were different now, the ownership boxes, the routing arrows, and right in the middle of the structure, Danner, M., primary custodian. She collapsed into the leather guest chair, the spreadsheet jokes, the nights he stayed up until 3 a.m. at the kitchen table, the vendor calls she mocked. They weren't obsessions, they were architecture. And she was never curious enough to ask what the blueprints were for. Her father's voice, now lower. He's not withdrawing, sweetheart. This isn't revenge. She looked up. This is extraction. Quiet, clean, and airtight. He left no fingerprints because he was the structure. For the first time, she had no retort, no smug line, just a slow dawning understanding that she hadn't married an accessory. She married the architect of her reality. And now, he was pulling it apart like scaffolding. It was the second legal call of the day, and by now her father's forehead looked like it had aged a decade. He put it on speaker the moment he saw her pace back into the room, heels clicking too fast, voice clipped with rage, mascara slightly smeared from the rush of everything falling apart. She hadn't eaten, couldn't. She was trying to outrun a problem that had been quietly built under her for years. "This is Martin from Langford and Gold," came the voice through the speaker. "We've completed the audit of the marital contracts. Your daughter's prenup, specifically, contains language that transfers financial stewardship." "That's not possible," she barked, eyes flashing. "I've seen that prenup. It was standard. I pushed for it. There's no way I gave him that kind of control." Clause 14b, signed jointly, states that in the event of a liquidity emergency or an agreed-upon separation, there wasn't a separation. The role of financial steward reverts fully to the party listed under Appendix C. Her father, jaw clenched, interrupted. And Appendix C lists Michael Danner, trustee, custodian, and authorized signatory on all 3 umbrella accounts. The room went quiet, the kind of quiet that makes your bones itch. Her eyes darted to her father. That language was symbolic. It was to reassure him. "That's what I was told. You said it was just a gesture." "I thought it was too," he muttered. "Then undo it." "It's irrevocable," the lawyer cut in. The accounts were structured under multiple instruments. The trust deed, the custodian roles, even the internal bylaws of your private equity holdings all list him as sole operator. There's no easy reversal. In fact, the voice paused, uncomfortable. "The jet fuel account? He closed it this morning, moved the remaining balance into escrow. You no longer have access to private flight under the current travel contract." Her hands twitched at her sides. "You're telling me I have no way to fly?" "You can fly commercial," the voice said, too flat, too practical. She grabbed the manila folder from earlier, flipping pages like they might magically rewrite themselves. The signatures were hers. The agreements were real. The phrases, discretionary transfer rights, financial steward, authorized rebalancer, sounded like polite nothings when she first heard them. Now they sounded like shackles. The lawyer continued. "The liquidity triggers on your family's umbrella fund are also routed through Danner. It's all him. The trade approvals, the dividend pullbacks, the quarterly allocations, even the discretionary bonuses." Her voice cracked. "My bonus?" Her father finally sat down, the fight draining from his posture. "Sweetheart," he said slowly, carefully. "He didn't own the money. He owned the movement of it." "I want to revoke the clauses," she said. "There has to be a way to revoke." "There's not," said the attorney. "They were signed under durable terms. Your name is still attached, but only as a beneficiary, not an operator." "A beneficiary? Like some dependent widow?" she snapped. "Yes," the lawyer said, "exactly like that." Her father stared at the screen, silent. She stood up. "Then we sue him. We'll sue him for fraud, for manipulation. He tricked me." The lawyer sighed. "I wouldn't recommend that. You signed everything, and every move he's made has been within the framework of the agreements you insisted on. If you sue him, he'll counterclaim for defamation and fiduciary interference, and he'll win. There it was again, that word, win. Michael didn't shout, didn't beg, didn't threaten, he just moved. And now, she was stuck in place. No jets, no bonuses, no fund access, not even flight lounge status. Her world had been pried open and rearranged by the one person she thought had no leverage. He never wanted control over her, just the systems she never bothered to understand. And now he had them, all of them. She didn't drive back. Her father's driver offered, but she refused, said she needed a minute to think. But truthfully, she needed the motion, the wind on her face, the illusion of control. She walked the 10 blocks from his office tower to the high-rise they once called her sanctuary, designer flats biting into her feet, hair unraveling in the breeze. She didn't care. She just needed to be back in that space, her space. At least that's what she thought. She entered the building through the side lobby, normally reserved for staff and deliveries, but she couldn't bring herself to walk through the main entrance with its giant marble fountain and uniformed concierge. Something in her gut whispered, "Don't." The elevator accepted her floor number. That at least hadn't changed. Yet. By the time she reached the penthouse floor, her pulse had steadied. She dug into her purse, pulled out the keypad remote for the main door, punched in her code. Nothing. She tried again. Slower. Still nothing. No buzz, no red light, no rejection message, just silence. She cursed under her breath and pressed the intercom. The doorman picked up. "Mrs. Danner?" "Yeah, the keypad isn't working." A pause. "Right. That's because your authorization was revoked this morning." Her stomach dropped. "What?" "Your access code was deactivated at 9:03 a.m. per formal instruction from property management. I'm very sorry." "Open the damn door." "I can't. Only the listed account manager can approve access now." "I am the listed." "I'm afraid the system shows a change of ownership. It's now listed under Michael Danner," she finished for him. Silence. She hung up, stormed downstairs, this time through the main entrance, pushing through the concierge desk. "I need to speak to management, now." The concierge, a man who had once offered her Perrier with lime on rainy days, nodded with a tight, pained smile and made the call. She waited, pacing, arms folded. When the phone was handed to her, the voice on the other end was cold, robotic. "Miss Danner?" "Yes, I'm trying to understand what the hell is going on. I live in Penthouse B." "You lived in Penthouse B. Ownership of the unit transferred this morning to Consolidated Interest Holdings." "That's our holding company." "Not anymore. As of this morning, Mr. Danner executed full transfer of title via the custodial authority granted by the Umbrella Trust. The holding company is no longer jointly governed. Your name was removed from the board last quarter. The documentation is public if you'd like to verify." She almost dropped the phone. "So what? You're telling me I can't go into my own home?" "We're telling you it's no longer your home. Mr. Danner's firm sent over instructions. Access is to be granted only with written permission." "I don't need permission. I'm his wife." A pause. "Not legally separated, not yet. But structurally, yes, per the trust's interpretation of independent living status and executor designation." She slammed the phone down so hard the concierge flinched. Her phone buzzed. It was her father. She answered before the first ring finished. "Tell them I'm coming," he said. "I'll straighten this out myself." 10 minutes later, he walked in, red-faced and panting from indignation, still in his office blazer. He marched straight to the property office down the hallway with the kind of presence that usually got results. But 10 minutes after that, he walked back out, slower. "They said the same thing," he muttered. "You didn't press hard enough." "No, I did. They have the paperwork. You're not even listed as a tenant anymore. Hell, I'm not listed anywhere either. It's all tied up through the trust's operating arm, and guess who controls that?" She didn't answer. "You thought the house was yours?" he said quietly. "Sweetheart, the whole block is under his umbrella fund. You're just a name on an outdated lease file." She looked at the building again, at the glossy tower that used to feel like a prize, a symbol of her curated life. Now it looked like what it really was, a monument to her ignorance. The marble, the steel, the concierge greetings, it had always bent toward Michael, because he built it, protected it, structured it. And now that he was gone, the building didn't even recognize her. She spent 2 hours getting ready that evening, not because she wanted to, but because she had to. The gala had been on her calendar for 6 months, a black tie event for a children's health initiative she once co-chaired and still claimed to advise, though no one could recall the last time she'd attended a planning meeting. But tonight, showing up was no longer optional. Rumors were swirling, whispers forming like mold in the corners of high society, and she could feel them creeping. Her stylist arrived with 3 gowns. She picked the most expensive-looking one, not the one that fit best, not the one she liked most, the one that screamed unbothered. "Keep the neckline low," she instructed. "I want the diamonds to breathe." When the car dropped her at the Hilton Grand Ballroom, the press flashes were weaker than usual. She smiled anyway, lifted her chin higher than necessary, and walked in like her life wasn't bleeding out behind her. The first 2 hours were uneventful, on the surface. Polite hellos, air kisses, distant compliments. But there was a gap, a subtle hollowness in how people addressed her now. They didn't ask about Michael. They paused, waiting for her to mention him, and when she didn't, they let the topic float between them like a bloated balloon no one wanted to pop. She laughed too loud, complimented the wrong person's shoes, misread someone's husband for a donor she once dated. Everything felt slightly off. Then, over champagne near the balcony, someone leaned in close, a man whose name she couldn't remember but who clearly remembered hers. "You should probably speak with your husband's attorney," he whispered, just above the music. She blinked. "Excuse me?" "Your husband, his attorney. You may want to, well, get ahead of what's coming." She laughed. Not a real one. A barked scoff. "There's nothing to get ahead of." He gave a tight-lipped smile. "If you say so," and drifted away. The room felt warmer suddenly. Too many sequins, too little oxygen. Her champagne glass shook slightly in her hand, the reflection of the chandelier above rippling inside it like a warning. That's when her father found her. He wasn't supposed to be at the gala. He hated these things, hated the donors, hated the wine, hated the performative empathy. But here he was, tie slightly loosened, eyes too focused. He didn't say hello. He pulled her aside near the powder room, waited until no one else was close enough to hear, and said in a voice that sounded like it came from a man who'd just been slapped by a ghost. He submitted the notices. "What notices?" she asked, her throat dry. "To the board, transfer documentation, contingency clauses, things we signed in 2020 during the reallocation. I forgot we even had them." "I didn't authorize anything," she said, defensive. "No, we did. All of us. Back then. He's invoking them, methodically, legally." She stared at him. "We wrote them in for a crisis," he went on, "as insurance. He was the fail-safe, the stabilizer, the one person the board trusted to keep everything from collapsing if things went sideways. Guess what? He's pulling the pin." No, that can't be right." He leaned in closer. "He's not talking to the board. He's not leaking. He's not threatening. He's just executing. You don't even understand how dangerous that is. Every move he makes, silent, unprovoked, it makes us look guilty." She shook her head. "He wouldn't do that." "Sweetheart, you mocked the one man who held the pin to the whole system, and now?" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to, because in that moment, her mind didn't flash back to the bank accounts, or the revoked access, or even the house. It flashed to a dinner from a year ago. Michael had made roast duck, poured a full-bodied red. She was barely paying attention, on her phone, scrolling through influencers she couldn't stand. He'd tried to tell her about a clause he'd written into the family fund, something she waved off as nerdy panic planning. He had looked at her then, across the candlelight, and said, "Sometimes love means building the ark even when the sun is still shining." She told him to stop quoting Pinterest. He never brought it up again, and now she was floating in floodwaters. At the gala, the lights glimmered, music played, glasses clinked, but to her, everything felt off, like dust in her throat, like the taste of dinner turned to ash. She didn't sleep that night, not even the medicated kind of sleep she used to summon with half a Xanax and a lavender diffuser. Her phone sat on the silk pillow next to her like a coiled threat, screen lighting up with meaningless notifications, flash sale, new collection drop, update your account settings, but nothing from him. And that, more than anything, drove her insane, because Michael always answered, always, even when she didn't deserve it. Even when she snapped at him in public, rolled her eyes in front of his friends, talked over him at dinners, he always picked up. Even at 2 a.m. after some gala she dragged him to where she drank too much and cried in the coat room, he answered, always with that same voice, calm, measured, solid. So when she finally cracked and called him at 3:04 a.m., she fully expected the click of the line. Maybe silence, but definitely presence. Instead, it rang. Once, twice, then picked up. No greeting, just silence. She exhaled shakily, like that silence meant something merciful. This is absurd, she started. Okay, you've made your point. Congratulations. You scared the board. You locked some things. It's enough now, just come home, undo it. More silence. She started pacing, barefoot across the cold marble that still echoed her own words back at her. Look, we don't have to go backwards, I need you to fix this. You're the only one who can. That's why we built this the way we did. I trusted you. Maybe too much. But that's what you wanted, right? Trust? Okay, I'm trusting you now. Fix it. The silence shifted. Not crackling, not breathing, but waiting. Then finally his voice, calm, controlled. I accepted your offer. She froze. What? You said you'd give me a week without you. That was a fight, she snapped. That wasn't a contract. Neither was the marriage, he said flatly. A pause. Then he continued. You didn't realize how much of your life was me, not just the comfort, the motion, the pulse. You were so proud of everything you had that you never noticed who was turning the wheel. Michael, you gave me a week. I don't need the full 7 days. I've already undone the part of me that was yours. Now I'm just untying the part of you that was mine. She clenched the phone. Don't do this. You think this proves something? That you're stronger now? That I'm weak? No, he said. I think it proves you were always standing in front of glass, mistaking it for a mirror. Then the line went dead. She stood frozen, the blue screen reflecting off her face. She called back immediately. This number is no longer in service. She tried again, and again. Same response. She opened her contacts, tried the office line, straight to voicemail. She tried his old assistant. Number disconnected. She checked LinkedIn. His profile was gone. Panic gave way to something colder. Rejection. Not the kind you scream over, the kind that leaves no door behind it. She stared out the penthouse window. The skyline she once called her empire looked foreign now, like it belonged to someone else. Because it did. He didn't just leave. He shut the door, locked it, bricked over the entrance, filed a permit to demolish the frame, burned the blueprints, and all she could do now was stand on the wrong side of silence. Monday morning began with static in her ears. Not real static, just the emotional kind. The kind that turns everything muffled, like the world is underwater and you're the only one holding your breath. She was still in the silk robe when her father called. They pulled the short-term facility, he said. No greeting, no preamble. What? The bridge line, the revolving one, gone. Liquidity just dried up overnight. She blinked at the ceiling. So call Langford, resecure the line. They're not picking up. Why the hell not? Because Michael pulled the guarantor status, her father said. And they're assuming the worst, that we're exposed. We're not exposed. Yes, he said flatly. We are, because he was the coverage, on paper, on execution, on damn near everything, and when he withdrew the custodian proxy, the credit risk rating flipped. She sat up, nausea rising. But the firm's solvent. Solvency doesn't matter when people think you're toxic. She didn't answer. They're circling, he continued. The board wants an emergency session. I've already had 4 investors ask for reassurances we can't legally give without him in the room. But I can. You can't, he snapped. You're not on anything. He hung up. 10 minutes later, her personal banker called. The tone was polite, apologetic, cold. Mrs. Danner, I regret to inform you your account has been flagged for temporary audit. Why? She asked, already knowing. Per federal regulations, all assets derived through spousal structured trusts are subject to examination in the event of a custodial role change. Until the audit is complete, we are required to freeze outgoing transactions. I'm not trying to withdraw, she hissed. I'm trying to live. Pending resolution, the freeze applies across all dependent accounts, including shared subsidiaries, lifestyle draws, and third-party card access. I'm not some gold digger on Bravo, she snapped. I built things. I understand, ma'am. He did not understand. She threw the phone across the room. It didn't break. Of course it didn't. Things didn't break when you wanted them to. She stormed into her closet, ripped open drawers, yanked out her old iPad, Michael's technically from before he upgraded. It was still synced to some of his business folders. She opened one. Most of the files were gone, wiped. But one line stood out in the cache preview. Contingency execution, Phase 3, proxy reversal, compliance notice. She barely finished reading it before her office phone rang. Her boss. Grace, he said, too calm. I can explain. No need. I just received notification from compliance. Your shares were held under your husband's proxy authorization. That proxy was rescinded this morning. She went cold. You've been suspended, effective immediately. You can't. Until we sort it, I have to. Compliance flagged it. We've got an SEC whisper forming. I am this department, she hissed. He exhaled. You were, but now, you're a headline risk. Are you firing me? No, not yet, but don't come in, and please don't speak publicly about anything. Not the marriage, not the firm, not the house. You've become unstable, Grace. Click. She stared at the blank wall across from her. For years, she had measured her value by how many people returned her calls in the first hour. That number was now 0. She tried calling her assistant. No answer. Tried texting her PR friend. Hey, can you help me clean something up? Delivered. Never read. She opened Instagram. Her last story had 27 views. A post from 2 days ago, her in a red dress captioned, "Building my legacy," had 5 comments. 3 were bots. 1 was from her stylist. The last was from someone she didn't know. Didn't age well. Her fingers hovered over the screen. She couldn't even bring herself to delete it, because deleting it would mean admitting it happened, and it had. She was radioactive now, the kind of person you unfollow quietly, the kind whose name you mention in whispers, not out of fear, out of embarrassment, as if what happened to her might be contagious. The woman who once curated her life like a magazine spread was now a warning label, all because the man she married didn't yell, didn't hit, didn't threaten. He just left the system, and the system was him. She hadn't left the penthouse in 3 days. Not that it felt like hers anymore. The furniture still sat in its polished places, the scent of lavender still pumped through the ducts, and the fridge still hummed with the same gentle tone, but it was all hollow now, like walking through a showroom replica of a life that had quietly unstitched itself from her name. She spent her mornings in silence, avoiding the mirrors. Her phone was still full of numbers, but not one she could call without tasting humiliation. Her father had gone radio silent after his own board turned against him. Her assistant ghosted. Her lawyer called once, then followed up with, "Per your request, I'll defer further correspondence." She hadn't requested that, but the universe had. Then came the knock. Not to her unit. She didn't have control of that anymore. It came via intercom from the front desk. "Miss Danner?" the concierge said softly. She hated the way his voice had changed. 2 weeks ago, he would have greeted her like she owned the marble beneath his feet. Now he sounded like someone speaking to a patient post-surgery. "There's something here for you. A small box, no return address." "Bring it up," she muttered. Pause. "I was instructed not to send it upstairs, in person only." She considered arguing. But what was the point? She slipped on a coat over her robe, didn't bother with makeup, and rode the elevator down like a woman going to her own sentencing. At the desk sat a nondescript brown parcel, about the size of a shoebox. Matte black ribbon, no label, no handwriting. She signed without speaking, took it upstairs, set it on the table, stared at it, then opened it. Inside, a single photograph, glossy, professionally printed. The image was haunting in its banality. Her kitchen, more specifically, the marble island, and on it, the keys, his keys, laid out with precise spacing, house, car, elevator, fob, just as he'd left them that night. Tucked behind the photo was a single sheet of paper, not typed, just 2 sentences, handwritten in the neat, precise print she once teased him for. "You gave me a week. I only needed a day." No signature, no name, just that. At the bottom of the box was one final object, his old security badge, the one he used to clip to his belt when he left for work. ID number, photo, barcode, snapped in half, clean, sharp break right through his face. Her fingers trembled as she lifted it out, running a thumb along the severed edge. She didn't cry. There were no tears left. What settled over her instead wasn't sadness. It was something colder, sharper, clarity. He hadn't yelled, hadn't retaliated, hadn't posted or ranted or fought. He'd simply delivered his absence like a scalpel, and now the cut was clean, surgical, no bleeding left to do. She looked again at the photograph, the stillness of it, the cold precision. It wasn't a farewell, it was a declaration, not of war, of completion. 1 year later, nearly to the day, she stood across the street from the building that used to carry her name on the donor plaque. And now, it wasn't even letting her pass the sidewalk. It had been in the papers for weeks, this massive new investment hub launching in the financial district, a landmark collaboration between legacy capital and emerging tech. Headlines buzzed with vague references to founders with deep restructuring experience and stealth operators turned giants. But she knew who it was. Of course she knew. Michael Danner. His name wasn't whispered anymore. It was on panels, on conference brochures, on television crawl lines beneath CNBC anchors who used to ignore his existence entirely. The man who once stood beside her at dinners like an afterthought now had a firm with an 8-figure entry floor and a 12-figure valuation rumored before launch. She hadn't spoken his name in months, but she said it under her breath that morning, quiet, like prayer or poison. She didn't receive an invitation to the opening, obviously, but she dressed like she did. Matte black suit, sleek heels, hair tied back in a clean high bun, pearl studs that whispered old money, even if her bank statements hadn't made a sound in months. She didn't try to enter through the main doors. She wasn't stupid, but she figured the sidewalk would at least tolerate her. It didn't. The moment she got within 10 feet of the velvet ropes outside, a security guard stepped forward, not aggressive, not hostile, just surgical. "Sorry, ma'am, can't let you through." "I'm not going in," she replied calmly. "Just standing here." He tapped his earpiece, then added, "Not even on the curb. I was given a specific perimeter." "By who?" He just raised an eyebrow. She took a step back, across the street, out of the frame, but not out of sight. The black SUVs pulled up first, then came the press vans, then the suited attendees with small lapel pins, board members maybe, executives, people she used to know by first name, now suddenly looking like strangers she couldn't afford to acknowledge. And then, like choreography, he arrived. Michael stepped out of a Navy town car, flanked by 2 aides. Not in a tux, not in one of those rich man trying to look casual outfits, just a tailored dark suit and a half smile. The smile he used to give when he was thinking 5 moves ahead. He looked taller, not physically, just taller. And standing next to him, her father, in a charcoal suit, smiling for cameras, arm briefly around Michael's back as they walked together toward the steps of the new firm's building. He paused at the flash of a camera and turned slightly, laughing at something Michael said. Laughing. She watched them greet governors, investors, legacy family office leaders, the type who used to call her to broker introductions. Now they barely noticed her through the tinted glass. The security detail didn't even turn around. They just stood there like living symbols of her irrelevance. She stayed across the street, pretending to check her phone, pretending she had somewhere better to be. No one waved, no one glanced. She wasn't just out of the room, she was off the list. And as Michael turned and shook one final hand before stepping through the main doors, something in her chest folded inward, not from anger, not even from loss, from recognition. He'd done it. She told him to leave, smirked while she said it, and he did. He left, but not empty. He took the scaffolding, the blueprint, the keystone, and while she mocked him for carrying spreadsheets and